Wagwan gang, welcome to episode 2 of our story. Santo's life was short-lived. He bled to death in the hospital, a victim of bureaucratic red tape and police incompetence. The hospital refused to treat him without a police report, and the police wouldn't provide one without investigating the scene. An investigation delayed due to lack of fuel. The community was outraged. They marched to the police station carrying Santo call demanding answer. Ndoli ozu and Ibusa no ozu Kekechunu Budeneli ozu. They chatted, their voice echoing with grief and anger. The DPO excuses fell flat. Lack of men, lack of resources, but what about the report that could have saved Santo's life? The youth and vigilantes took matters into their hands, determined to protect their community, but the herdsmen showed no mercy. Ochiko and informal body were found by the river. Their life brutally cut short. The village was gripped by fear and famine cut to a standstill. The government remained silent and the herdsmen turned to kidnapping, targeting family living in poverty. Mama Kechi's sister and her family were kidnapped and a ransom of 20 million was demanded. They had to sell their property to pay for their life, and their life never remained the same. Okwara and Okechukwu were kidnapped while tapping palm wine. The villagers were at a breaking point. The herdsmen brutally knew no bounds. They killed and they destroyed. The village was a shadow of its former self, and the poor lived in a constant fear. The silence from the government was bewildering. It was as if they had abandoned Okwara to his fate. The villagers wondered if anyone was listening to their plea for help. The answer was no. In the midst of this chaos, a young girl wandered the street, her heart vacant, her heart broken. She had lost her family, her home, her sense of security. She was just one of many, a victim of the herdsmen violence. The villagers were trapped in a living nightmare. They couldn't farm, they couldn't live in peace. The herdsmen brutally have taken over their life, and the government seemed powerless to stop it. As the days turned into weeks, the village became a graveyard of hope and dream. The once fertile land lay barren, the farm unsettled. The people live in fear, their life forever changed by the herdsmen violence. The herdsmen demand grew more brazen. They wanted food, they wanted money, they wanted control. The villagers were forced to live in hiding, always looking over their shoulder. One wrong move could mean death. A group of villagers tried to flee, but they were caught by the herdsmen. They were beaten, they were tortured, they were killed, their bodies were left by the roadside, a warning to others. The village elder Chief Moose, who was beside himself with grief, he had lost loved one, he had lost hope. He wondered if the village would ever be the same thing again. The answer seemed to be no, because the government are silent. The herdsmen violence was a cancer eating away at the village soul. It was eating away all the villagers. It was a slow and painful death, and the villagers were powerless to stop it. They were trapped and they knew it. In the midst of this despair, a glimmer of hope emerged. A group of young men determined to protect their community began to organize a resistance. They were armed with nothing but sticks, stone, and determination. But would it be enough to take on the well-armed herdsmen? The fate of Okwara hung in the balance, and the outcome was far from certain. Would the villagers be able to reclaim their land and their life, or would the herdsmen brutally consume them all? Only time will tell. As the villagers prepared for the worst, they received a message from the kidnappers. Okwara and Okechukwu were still alive, but for how long? The ransom demanded was higher than ever before, and the villagers knew they couldn't afford it. What would happen next? Only time will tell. The villagers were on edge, waiting for the worst. They knew the herdsmen wouldn't hesitate to kill, and then the unthinkable happened. Okwara's body was found by the river, his eye frozen in death. The villagers were shocked. They were outraged. They knew they had to act fast. The resistance movement grew stronger, more determined. They vowed to fight back to reclaim their land, their life, but the herdsmen were relentless, and the battle was far from it. was far from being over. The government still remained silent, and the villager wondered if anyone was listening. Well, it is fine. Or do you think that they were abandoned to their fate? We'll see to that in episode 3.